Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another session from the Wise Asylum. What's gone on this week, as there not? 3, 2, 2. Death everywhere. Ooh, my word. Not good what's going on over there in Moscow, I have to say. I have to say though, I've watched a lot of videos that they seem to have took away now. And it's just a bit too big a gap between the event and the plot and such turning up. So methinks old Vlad there has played his little part in that, and it's just an excuse to up the game. He's bombed the living shit out of Kiev, and I believe they're sending missiles over into Russia. So they want all your offspring off to war. Oh, jolly good. You need to start getting into heads of your kids, man, because they don't want to be going off to there. Because none of these elite pillocks, well, I think they're elite, none of their kids are going over there, I can assure you. So that's that, and then you've got another death announcement on the old 322, the old cancer, and the flea bags up telling everybody it's got cancer. What an absolute garbage. I mean, if people are soaking into this, it's diabolical, to be honest, you know. If we've time later, we'll go into that, but I'd rather just crack on with what it is we're going to do, which is complete the trilogy of the coming to understand 666 in its correct manner, and none of this nonsense that gets flushed around from people that clearly don't know their ass from their elbow. Yeah, which goes on everywhere. It's all about the I tonight. The I, the third eye, the manifesting thing. What's your third eye manifesting? Is it manifesting the cheat sheet evil system? Yes, it is, because we've lost the spiritual eye now. That's gone, hasn't it? The church has gone. There was the spiritual eye manifesting something good, and that's well gone down the pan a long, long time ago. And a lot of people are stuck, aren't they? They're in a bit of a mess in that they can see that these institutions have gone up their arse, and they think that because of that, oh dear, what we're going to do. But yeah, if you think about it, chaps, who you are, who are you? Your morality, everything you hold dear, that's you. That's who you are. It's got nothing to do with an institution. You're not you because these institutions have gone upside down. You are still you. And, you know, it's back to that trusting the inner self, the kingdom within. This is your test now, because if you can't trust it now, in the face of the fact that the institutions, the organisations, the orders, everything's gone upside down, does that mean you have to go upside down? Well, it does if you're taking your input from external sources. Your worth is not respective of what's going on out there. It's all about what's in you. And don't change. Don't change, and don't fear because you think you've lost something that you depended on. You know, that's the game that we've got to play today. You know, the door for redemption's closing. It's closing. People need to reckon with themselves and work it out. Just because an institution is falling flat on its ass doesn't mean you have to. You are who you are. And if an institution helped you to get to where you are, all well and good. But it's not going to carry you through this piece, is it? You're on your own. Everybody's on their own. The kingdom within, or take it from out there. The choice is yours. Because the I is always manifesting, is it not? And we've looked through first the 3 chakras, the lower and the lower nature, you might say, of man held fast in the garden, because it's all upside down. And hopefully, well, let's say not last week's live stream, but the week before, if I did it correctly, a lot of people went, he's insane, what's he talking about? He's attacking all the religions and everything and saying it's crap. Well, I'm not attacking any such thing. What I'm pointing out is the fact that they've all been turned upside down. They're upside down. You're not going to get your sustenance from these places anymore. And we began the 666 with the phrase describing a particular form of man, the human, in its 3 parts, adding up in the cube to 666. It's a form of man, not one man. It's the expression of man today. And I hope I got across to you that there's a big difference between the spoken word and the written word. The written word is where the word wizards can play. And play they have, and sent you all off in all sorts of directions, totally off and away from the true path, because they've written it down. And you're following the written word. Your eye doesn't see what it's supposed to see. The spoken word, in the beginning was the word. There's a reason why that's there, and it starts with the word. The word is sound, it's a frequency, it's also light. Everything's based off the word, the sound, light, darkness, everything is based in sound. That is what this place is built on. And sound communicates directly with your astral body, the chakras. That's what the word does, sound, important. This is why all the ancient traditions were oral. This is the game, this is what it's about. They've removed you from that communication. You're no longer communicating directly from your astral body. You're communicating through your eyeballs, because you're focused to the written word, and the written word is the arena of the word wizards, and they have took everybody way off track for many, many centuries. And as I said before, it's no wonder we're in this mess today, because you believe you're on the right track, but of course you're not. You're following the track of the evil eye. You're manifesting the evil eye, and it's adventure. And look at it now, it's there in all its glory, throwing itself around like there's no tomorrow. And now people are left pretty much in shock, in fear, in awe of it, because they feel they've no part in it. Well, we've all played our part in it. Our ancestors have all played their part in it. So there's a huge difference between the spoken word and the written word, and that's the importance of it, because the written word takes you way off the truth of anything and everything. Discernment is important, because if that third eye isn't working, or if you're not in control of that third eye, but you are anyway, because of course it's manifesting who you are. But if you're imbalanced in those bottom 3 chakras, then you're manifesting by default the path of the word wizards, whose job is to manifest evil. So heaven on earth, you'd have to manifest it. There'd have to be enough people manifesting the spiritual side of life in order for it to become physical. That's not what's happening, because everybody is in the negative in those 3 chakras and held fast in the garden. Not good. Now these elites, as we've said, cheat sheets, they've bypassed the need for the spiritual side of things, because they've learnt the trick. They've learnt the trick of how to actually use the third eye to manifest what it is they want to manifest, and the rest is history. But especially through the written word. That's the game they've played, and that's why everybody is in such a mess. And we've said it starts in the root chakra. The chakra, the frequency that's about the survival of the avatar. So that's where fear is born. Fear is born in there, and its expression in the negative is we have to kill everybody else, or at least control everybody else, to feel secure. Then off comes the thesis for that, which is the Talmud. It satisfies all the negative side of why you should continue to believe that that negative is correct, and that you can indeed look to kill and enslave everybody because it's for your own survival. Well, we've looked at that. The negative of that, it shows itself in Talmudic Judaism. We also know, do we not, depicted in the serpents, it rises. So that fear and that negative of the roots enters the sacral chakra, the sexual energy, the creative energy. Well, it's in fear. It's got the fear from the root of survival, and most people out there are terrified that no female or male is going to want to bang them and procreate. Thus are born thoughts of rape, of capture, of enslavement, as that fear, negative energy rises. Yet war becomes a major point, even though it starts in the root. But war becomes a major instrument to the mind of the negative fruitcake, because, of course, to secure that slavery, that right to rape, you've got to do some war. You can do it on an individual level to your partner, to somebody you've chosen to do it, but it's war. It's war. Negative sexual energy is war. That's what it is. And then off it goes to the solar plexus, the point at which the solar energy hits you, comes into your world and helps you to push your will into this manifestation out here. Negative of that, as we've discussed, is you've no faith in yourself, no faith in that inner kingdom. You believe you must hand it over to something else, somebody else, an institution, a man, an idea, an order, a society. Just every time you just send a little bit of yourself away, you've lost control. You've failed to take responsibility for your existence and for your life. There we have complete the three chakras in the garden, operating in the cube, tied and trapped in that cube, because it has to be so. So that's what we've expressed so far. Now, so you sight in the fifth, you might say. Well, if you have failed in the three, your sight in the fifth has already been provided for you. It's been provided for you by a religion, by a secret society. Especially the secret societies, because what do they need? What do they demand from the start? We'll give you information. You come in here, you take that oath, you're going to keep your mouth shut. They've got you completely and utterly fixed and controlled to their will, which is the building of the evil eye. That's the evil eye. That's why you see it on the capstone of the pyramid, because he's building that system, which eye is manifesting. And of course, we can see today, we know what is manifesting. And people worry about taking oaths in these secret societies. Well, yes, you should worry about it. But I've written a piece about it, which I'll put up under this video. But unless you've taken a blood oath, so obviously you've got to be a complete fruitcake, totally fearful of everything and prepared to give up your entire life to something other than yourself. You're so terrified of that in your kingdom, the kingdom within. And so many of these orders go, I'm Jesus, Jesus, blah, 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 blah. You wouldn't know Jesus today if he smacked you in the face. And I'll give you an example of that, which ties in again with the following the written word. The expectations you have of this message that will come to mankind, the image you have of the entity that's going to bring that is upside down, completely and utterly upside down. And I'll give you an example to show you how that is reality. But the oaths, Unless you've taken the blood oath. What have you oathed into these societies? You have oathed a name. Who does that name belong to? We've studied the law. We've expressed the law. Who does that name belong to? It doesn't belong to you. We've learnt that, have we not? It belongs to the very fruitcakes you suggested an oath to. All you've actually done, in truth, is oath the name that they already own to themselves. But if you're fixed to that name as, that's who I am, this is me, they've got you. Your ignorance, again, has trapped you in your own mind. You're trapped, but you're not trapped. They own the name, you've given it back to them. Pull your flesh and blood back away from it. Redemption, folks. The door is closing. The door is closing. Don't feel safe with these societies. They've made it clear in their many theses that you're only there until they've closed the door. And then they don't need you anymore. They've already got the platform set up since 2020 to do that. Simplicity. You must come in. Yeah. Well, you think you're having a placebo. But one day it won't be that placebo. When you've done what they want you to do and they no longer need you. Satisfying the root chakra. The need that the only way we can survive is to have the world to ourselves. That's the game. That's the evil eye. That's the pyramid of the evil eye system that's manifesting all around you. You've got to trust your inner self now. There's nothing else. Everything out there is crap. People have to come together in your own morality. Stop claiming to be, I'm a Catholic, I'm a Protestant, I'm a Freemason, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Buddhist. What the fuck does that mean? What is it that? It means nothing. You are who you are. And if other things have helped you from the outside, fine. But it's time to cut loose from all that and reckon with yourself. You know, I've tried to explain how you cleanse the lower three to try and pull yourself back into the eye of the spiritual heavens. You have to do it. Nobody's going to do it for you. And them that claim to do it for you are feeding you shit. Horse shit. Pig shit. All the shit you can think of. That's what they're pumping out down your neck. Just to keep you quiet. You can't tell anybody what you're learning. You're not really learning anything. Unless they know and are quite content that you are actually as evil as they are. And then they'll teach you the game because you're rising up there. But then you're no longer coming in the entrance, you've gone in the exit. K. Griggs. K. Griggs will explain that to you. Seek her out. So, off we go with the energies above and beyond the garden. So you've got the throat chakra, the fifth dimension. But what is it actually really about? Well, it's all about that third eye there. Because that's the manifester of everything in this place. Everything. Yeah, you've got to understand it in these terms, people. You are manifesting. You can't blame anybody else. You are manifesting. And whatever's in your world is what you and where you are as a frequency. It's time to stop blaming. You know, David Icke, I had a comment on his thing, playing into the blame game. No, that's not helping people. You're not helping people by encouraging them to blame everybody else for the nonsense that's just took place in the last 4 years. Reckon with it. It was an apocalyptic event for you to see and wake up. Snap out of this nonsense. Take responsibility and remove yourself emotionally, psychologically and physically from what you're now beginning to understand isn't what you thought it was. It's all on you, folks. Nobody's going to do it for you. In fact, everybody else is going to encourage you not to do that. You'll only be safe if you do this. You'll only be secure if you do that. Follow me, I know best. Pied Piper. Pied Piper playing a tune of the frequency that you're at. Is it money? You're chasing money? Chasing power? Security in numbers? Look at what happens when you give yourself up to numbers. You know, you start praying on road, in streets, when you've got a mosque. You start killing each other. It's just ridiculous. That's not the follower. You don't want to be the hive mind anymore. Because the hive mind belongs to the dark, unclean players in this world. And we've gone through one or two of these families to give you insight. There's more to come. Because it's a lot bigger than you think. And you know these people. You know these people, whether you like it, you know it or not, because you're buying the stuff. You're giving them your energy. You're giving them your money. You're giving them your time. You're giving them your praise. You're feeding them. You're feeding them for every orifice that you've got. So tonight we're going to go through, and I'm going to give you a fine example of how this works. How it's worked through the secret societies. Because they've not all been bad at the get-go. But we can see that they've been taken over. And the thing is, in this time today, we have to understand that the pinnacle of this would be what we class as the Holy See families. Pure Venetian. And you're going to find out who the Venetians operate for as we travel through this third and final teaching in the reality of the 666, the garden, and the meaning of the eye. You're going to learn quite a lot tonight if you're open. And if you were upset a live stream or so ago, good, the door's open. Let's see if we can give you something while you've opened it. Even if it upset you. We can see if you can see some truth. Enough to bring courage to the fore. And help you to take responsibility for your own life. And stop believing. And stop being afraid. Because being afraid isn't going to stop all the nonsense that's going on out there in La La Land. They've only just started. They've only just kicked it off, you know? And this week has kicked off a hell of a big scam and a game. And I'm in no way thinking and believing Putin is not playing along. No way would it take so long for those services to come to that terrifying event where over 100 people were shot, throats slit. I mean, there's been videos of it on the Twitter. They seem to be disappearing now, but I've followed it, and the stuff that I've seen on them videos is ridiculous. But they want you to see it. They want you to see that. They want you to see it because they want you to act in certain ways. And most people will. Because that's who they are. So, all these sea families we've looked at. But now, I'll have a look at who's here, we'll have a chat, and then we'll get stuck in. But I'll show you the second most powerful instrument of this system. Because in doing so, we can move forward and show you how this evil eye system has got itself in to our world through old Blighty. So, further ado, who's joined us tonight? Let's have a look. Lex says, evening Sean and everyone. Good evening to you, Lex. Untitled, hello Sean and everyone. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you, sir. Jerry Son of Mick, hi Sean and Lex and all in the asylum. Get up, stand up, rise up. I'm going to have to clean these gigs because they're a bit minging. Let's see if I can see. Slipknot says, alright Sean, Jacqueline and everyone. Good evening to you, Slipknot. I think we're having some bit of headway on my old little monster in the face. Woke up this morning, clear as a bell, I have to say. That's the first for a very long time. So, thank you, Dr. Trev, I have to say there. PY Music says, evening all, good evening, Paul. I'm just looking there, nobody's come up, anybody else has come up as a mod, so the YouTube or whomever is preventing that. Anthony says, good evening, Sean and the gang, another wireless sign. Get in. Evening, Anthony. You says, hello everyone, morning, afternoon, evening to Wise Asylum. Not a mod yet, Slipknot. No, it's just looking now, because I thought you might have actually got it, but no, because it did take a bit that way when I was trying to show Paul out who decided to change YouTube channels, and obviously then weren't a mod. So it did take a week, so Get to do with me, chaps. I'm innocent. Ulick McGee says, hi all. Hello, Ulick. Jerry Sullivan says, alright, Ulick, thanks for the link up last night. Hadn't a clue how I ended up there. Not Guinness. You've not been on that poison piss, have you, Jerry? Anthony says, no mute, now my end. Okay, well, disaster. Paul says, good evening, Sean and everyone. Evening to you, Paul. Untitled says, solar eclipse of April 8th, 2024, another event eventually. I don't make a big deal about these things. I sat there and watched that last solar eclipse we had here in 1999. Eerie, I have to say, but, well, I suppose it did set off everything from 2000, so yeah. But they're playing to it, aren't they? They're playing to that. It's eclipse of the solar energy, so they're off doing their little shitty bits in the darkness. Jerry Sullivan says, take not the letter of the word, but the spirit. Well, it's a frequency, and it resonates with the astral body. That's what it's about. That's what they've shifted it off. And of course, as we know, what's the doctrine that's put all this legal slavery together? The King James Bible. Is it 36,000 translation errors? No. But anybody now that's getting savvy with the law can see clearly the King James Bible is the Bible for the enslavement of man through title. Where are we there? Anthony says, three eyes, two to view, one to see. Well, one to manifest. Anthony says, straight away, bringing clarity. I do admit I've had a negative day, good man, setting it straight. With knowledge and wisdom, fair play, that man shot. Well, I've had a negative day because the little bastards at GiveGaff have decided to kill my phone, my SIM. And they're tossing around like a bunch of shitbags. So I'm going to say bye-bye to that SIM, because if they think I'm toss-arsing around, they can kiss my rectum. So, chaps and ladies, everybody that's got my work number, and I've had this for years, it's no more. You'll not get me on that number anymore. So there we go. So I've had a shit day as well, tossing about with the toss pots O2, because of course O2 control GiveGaff. So yeah, bad day alright, but we're getting to the full moon, so they have to do something. They have to stick the forks up your ass somewhere along the line after this spring equinox. Collapsed energies with the 322, as I suggested they would do a few live streams ago. Where are we? My answer to the negative is that which is taken by shortcut is likely to be like a thief, exactly. Therefore, I shall collapse through falsehood. Cos says, wave your hands, the gig's on, and a thumbs up. Hello, Cos. Mike says, evening, Sean. Good evening, Mike. Anthony says, synchronicity I shared on the Facebook as the intro music was playing. The writing with the share from my perspective was, it's pretty accurate. Sort your maps out. Come out and have a look at the Wise Asylum. Well, we don't want too many nutters. We don't want any nutters. We don't want nutters here, so I won't be able to talk to you because there'll be that many fruit bats talking garbage. Oh, let's just keep it nice and closed in. See, people want to come, let them come. But, you know, let's just encourage people that actually want to listen, that want to learn something, and don't want the fantasy and the nonsense that most of these people give you, so that you don't have to do anything because you think they're doing it all for you. I mean, this dream team that's coming together very nicely, headed by the Alexia. Good grief. Honestly, it's just ridiculous. Where are we there? Good evening all, says Miroslav Nikic. Good evening, my good man. Anthony says, Reet, I'm all ears from here on in. Well, that's all right. Miroslav says, new thinking is allowed. It's essential. It's essential. Treen. Evening, Sean and all. Hello, Treen. Mike says, hi, guys. And Sean. And we've got a halo on the old emoji. Treen says, I did mention last week about the 22nd being a significant day to watch out for. Yes, we did. We spoke about it. Not last week, I don't think, but the week before. Phil Loycombe says, evening Sean and all, good evening to you, Phil. Kerry says, love from Ireland and love back to Ireland, Kerry. 25th as well, and of course the 8th of April. Archaics has done an interesting video on that. I mean, I haven't watched Archaics now for yonks. I don't think he's going to come up with anything new. He's just going to keep regurgitating what he came out with at the beginning. So I haven't looked at the chat for a long time. But yeah. Be Your Better Self says, hey up, I'm late. It's alright, you're pardoned. Treen says, I was going to call you too, Sean. Well, you're more than welcome to give me a call, Treen. Jerry says, no, Sean, and he's laughing. No poison, no cabbage here, and 2 weeks off the cigarette. Well, you're doing better than me if you're off the fags. I had to run out for a quick one behind bike sheds before I cracked on with this one. I was nearly late. I was nearly late for my own gig. So, you're doing better than me, my old China, if you're off them fags. But I don't want to get off them fags. I actually enjoy it. I like the ritual, I like the puffing. And my lungs are in good order, so I'm not too bothered. Mew says, change your number over the new SIM, bud. No, oh, well, that's a thought. That is actually a thought. That's one way to scupper the shit bags, isn't it? I was frozen out halfway on the live last week, and that was in my mobile, as my TV, YouTube doesn't work at all, unless I watch cooking or craft stuff. You probably need, you need to ring up your supplier. You look at your contract, see what they said they're going to supply you. Ring them up, get a test, just put your test on. You can just Google internet test and it'll come up, press it, it'll tell you what your download speed is, it'll tell you what your upload speed is. And if it's nowhere near what's on the contract that you originally signed, give them a ring and just say, look, can you come and sort this out? It's shit. And they will. Because they've written it down that they're going to apply it up to those set. But if yours is nowhere near that, they're going to have to come and sort it out. Anthony says, I deleted all the fruit bats from my friends list on Facebook. So hopefully only those with decent cognitive function back to... I've no idea what that emoji is. To laughs. Yeah, I mean, I don't let most people on my Facebook that want to come on because they're just usually fruitcakes. They want to argue, they want to talk crap. I'm up for debate. Bring me something good, I'll look at it. If it's garbage, I'm not even going to comment. But obviously, I've had some fruit bats in the past, and they really are fruit bats, and they don't know their ass from their elbow. And they're just pushing for you to start getting abusive so that they can go, he's shouting at me, I need a space. And says, can you kick him off? Yeah, they tested it, they claimed it's fine, in 6 weeks' time the contract ends. Oh, well, just get a better one. EE is a good one. They're evil, but they are fast. Gordon Fiala says, Faceache XD. Haha, good evening, Gordon. Right, so, as I said, we're going to explore tonight. Oh, first of all, I said I'd give you an example of why everybody's looking for this message to come through a particular character, let's say. And that's because of the written word. People miss the trick because you don't need the written word. If you want to understand what the man brought, I'll tell you a fine example of how you're missing the game altogether. Okay? In fact, I'll give you 2 examples. We'll F and Jeff a little bit, and then I'll give you just an example. I'm not suggesting you go and do this. It's an example as to how off the mark, the path people are because they've followed the written word. So consider it in these terms. You're in a bank. Right? You're just there in your bank getting your money, and all of a sudden this guy comes in, starts shouting and bawling and throwing things everywhere and smashing the whole bank up. You'd be like, what the fuck's this nutcase? Get police in, get him away, this guy's a nutter. That was the action of the man that brought you the gospel. But you're looking for some pussy with sandals on and a beard, aren't you? Another example. Forget the words. Look at the actions. What he basically did the moment he stepped onto the path, he went, fuck off you can fuck off and you're full of shit. Kiss my fucking ass. Fuck you. That's what he did. Right the way through. But of course, when you're reading the shit, you're looking for this fairy guy that's going to go, oh. Can you dig that? Can you dig that? The written word isn't the spoken word. This is why he never written it down. He spoke it. And he spoke it in such a way that it resonated with everybody's astral body, which is why Rome and the Caesars shit themselves. Even though when you look at some of the writings of the guys like Pontius Pilate and such, when they're talking to each other, the Romans weren't actually what you think they were. These guys were way smarter than us. They knew who we were. They understood what he was saying. And you'll get that if you study the letters that are available from the people that were at that time. These people weren't screaming and shouting at him and saying, this guy's a fruit bat, let's off with his head. They were saying, no, this guy's right on the ball. They knew exactly what he was doing. It were one section of fruitcakes that were going apeshit and wanted to knock his head off and kill him. The ones that had built the evil eye temple of the day. The one that he came to destroy. And did destroy. Through Rome. Because Rome wasn't what this picture we have of it. Originally. It was probably the best idea we had in its day. For any idea or semblance of something good. You know, we look at what Rome is now. We look at what it's been in the last 6 centuries, let's say. It's not what it were at the beginning. It's not what it were when it were a republic. Julius Caesar. Well, before him, what were he called? Sulla. That's where it started, because why we had the Carthaginians in there, throwing the money and the gold. Here, come and do this. Everything Caesar did was illegal as far as the Rome Senate went, because he was being funded by the Carthaginians. As much as I like Caesar when I've studied his stuff, and the guy was a complete twat. And he weren't interested in Rome. He just wanted power. Dictatorship, that's what he wanted. He was obviously bejangled by the money, the power for himself. So it were good that he got snotted. Taught him a lesson. No, you can't do that, you naughty, naughty boy. He broke every rule of Rome. He passed the Rubicon. No. But yet, even that, when I studied Caesar, I thought, I quite like this guy. Probably because I were a bit in sync with him. So that was when I were a bit naughty. Before I'd cleansed myself up a little bit. But you know what I'm saying? But the bank example, you need to focus, just absorb that, what I've just said to you there. You know, the written word is giving you this picture. It's a false picture. When people go, oh, Jesus is coming back, oh, they're expecting some pillar to stand up with sandals on and a beard and go, oh, bless you, bless you. Fuck off. He's going to come back and say, kiss my fucking ass, you bunch of wankers. Fuck off. You're talking out your ass. Come on, guys, don't believe this fucking bunch of shit. That's the energy. And it's a message. It's got nothing to do with the people that are actually giving the message. But people tend to worship people. That's idolatry. Why would you worship people? You know, why? It's a message. That's all. It's a message. You know, if you got a good message on radio, you wouldn't worship your radio, would you? You wouldn't have it up on an altar going, oh, praise the radio. No. The message came through the radio. The written words put you off the path. Off the path completely. So that is just an example for you to see how the written word takes you off the path completely. You're not seeing the path. You're seeing the evil path because they've wrote it down. They've given it to you and you're taking it on board. But you're taking it in through your eyeballs. Not directly as a sound frequency hitting your chakras and spinning them off and it's all working fine. They're off kilter. They're not working properly. None of them, because it's all bollocks the way it's been presented through the written word. Right, so I want to kick it off. I want to be better yourself. You're a very well researched study man, Sean. Your head is the TARDIS. Well, I'll put it to you this way. I have done a lot of research. I've done a lot of study many, many moons ago, and it's continued forever, but it doesn't come from that. That's just the path to getting rid of the chaff to find the wheat. And the wheat comes from within. The more you trust yourself, the more you know yourself. See, I know exactly who I am. I know who I am. There's the confidence. It doesn't come from anything else. It doesn't come because I've studied that, because I've studied this. I've studied that and I've studied this and I've seen through it. And it always comes back to the more you trust yourself. Of course, and the more you've cleansed yourself, the more that inner trust is showing true. Because it's in sync with the spiritual law, not the fear-ridden garbage that comes from the garden human, the 666 man, who's about to get a king presented to it. Oh, and how many people are going to follow it? I mean, don't think everything's going to collapse tomorrow. It's not. It's not all going to happen tomorrow. You know, this guy's got to come. He's got to do his thing. I think he'll last 7 years, 7.5 years or something. Then he gets snotted. It's what happens after that's going to be the real problem time. Because he's going to convince so many people to follow this evil path so that they can put the eye on the capstone, the evil eye. It's what happens after. How many people have sucked into this garbage, this piece of piss that's going to come up with all these answers because he's fronting the very forces that have created this system. That's the thing. So don't be thinking it's all going to end tomorrow. Everybody does that. You study something, you think, shit, tomorrow it's going to blow up. It's not. Everything's got a time. And it's not going to blow up tomorrow. Oh, let's get rid of that because they're a bit funny coloured. I don't like them. Right, so stop shitting yourself is the message. You know what I'm saying? Absorb what works for you and disregard what does not, says PY. Not who gave the message, but did you get the message? Exactly. Precisely. That's it. Look at me, uncouth, effing and jeffing, snotting all over the shop sometimes. But it's good shit. It's good shit that's coming, that you're getting. And you've all got it. You've all got that available to you. Because it comes from here. In. From within. So anyway, what were I going to do? Right, so we'll prompt this. I want to give an insight into the second largest instrument, second only to the Holy See families. This is what we're going to look forward to after through Blighty. We're going to look through Blighty as to what they've done, but this is how they've done it across the entire world. But we're Blighties, we're all on England, or Ireland, or Scotland. It matters. So, absorb this. If I can find it. What a noisy bugger I am. I don't know, a noisy sod. Anyway, so that's the second most potent instrument, which is why it's in everything. That's why. On our land. Outrageously disgusting. That's all I have to say on the matter. Now, let's get cracking on. Oh, it always does that. Do you know what? There we go. Okay. So I put this together. There's a lot more data I could have put in it, but it would have been going on and on and on forever. But if you're Masonically, if you've studied Masonic, this is for you, chaps. This will show you why you're in a system that doesn't serve you well. Okay, so it says, on the backs of the Crusader Knights would ride the black magicians of the Babylon Creed, first onto England as the Angevin chameleons brought death and destruction to Alfred's fair land. Away with you Trojans, declared the bastard named Bill. I give you feudalism for breakfast, for dinner and for tea. Scottish nationalism took root after the expulsion of the Jews by Edward I. Okay, so when you get all these fruit bats giving it the big Jerusalem's in Edinburgh, blah, 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 it's a load of shit. Okay, Eddie I kicked him out and off they went to Aggie Squeezer land. This in turn brought claims by the Scottish elect that Jerusalem was indeed built in Scotland, and thus the claim by the same opened the gates for the resettlement of those who cry Diaspora as the victim of the world. Upon this footing would emerge the Kabbalistic mysticism of the higher degrees of the craft and be presented through the 18th and 19th centuries onto the existing guilds of stonemasons, which would become known as Freemasons. In essence, the English stonemasons would become entangled in the craft of the Jews and thus become the scapegoat for all that would follow, while as a front, the centre of this craft would scapegoat England. Exactly what they've done. These fat fingers did not oath in any way, shape or form to uphold England. We've been scapegoated because the inner city is on London. The first Christian prince that expelled the Jews out of his territories was the heroic King Edward I, who was such a scourge also to the Scots, and it is thought diverse families of these banished Jews fled then in 1290 to Scotland, where they have propagated since in great numbers. Witness the aversion that nation have, above all others, to hog's flesh, or the pigs. And that comes from James Howell. I think that was 16 something. In England, the Templars used architecture as a visual aid to impress the populace by their direct connection with Jerusalem, which they expressed in the round church built in London in 1185. Now you've got to take that on board, okay? Because when you get into this properly, the original Templars, not necessarily all of them, because there were a diverse range of them, there were different branches from all over the place, because the Templars became massive across Europe. They had Templar military academies everywhere. So they were a diverse bunch. But we're talking about the English Templars, okay? Edward I, he were working with the Templars. So why did he expel the Jews? If, as the Freemasons claim and believe today, the Templars on England were Jewish. Not so, people. Not so at all. Okay, so you've got to get this, pick this up. I'll say that again. In England, so this is going way back, Templars used architecture as a visual aid to impress the populace by their direct connection with Jerusalem, which they expressed in the round church built in London in 1185. So the Templars in 1185 were using architecture to impress the populace. Okay? Now, if you go into all this garbage today through the Masonry and this idea of the Templars, you're told that it was Jewish from the get-go because those buildings that they were putting up everywhere, and especially the one, the Temple Church in London, was a copy of Solomon's Temple. So I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to look at this temple and you tell me, does this temple, shoved in there by the Talmudists, look anything like the architecture that the original Templars on England were using to impress people? So the design was based on what they believed was the plan of Solomon's Temple, a belief long preserved in English annals and building archives. And yet, it's absolute bollocks. I'll show you why. There's Solomon's Temple. Looks very square to me. Very much like a lot of the castles you find in Spain. By golly. Oh look, there's the temple. The temple is built in London. And it was to sanctify St. Mary the Virgin. Nothing Jewish about that, would you agree? Does that look anything like that? No. So there's bullshit everywhere. The original Templars used their architecture as a visual aid, and they built that, which doesn't look anything like that. Bullshit everywhere. And there's an image of it in all its glory. It doesn't look anything like that bag of shit, does it? Right. So that's point number one. The original Templars on England were nothing to do with Jews. In fact, it's quite the opposite, because Edward I was in contract with the Templars, which is why he was building all his castles. That's where he got his architecture from. And they threw out the Jews. So the Templars here on England were nothing to do with Judaism whatsoever. Understand that concept, people. After the construction of their Jewish church, the Templars continued to have a significant influence on operative masonry in England. There you can see the lies. They've rewritten everything. Joseph Scaliger being the main protagonist of this, a fraud. And all our history and chronology is based on this guy called Joseph Scaliger, who's a proper twat. And they've infused the term Jew everywhere to bedazzle the English and to bedazzle the idea of what a Templar on England was. I'm not saying that they weren't Jewish over there in Europe, but on England, Edward I shows you clear there were no such thing. They were Christians. So after the construction of the Jewish church, so of course you can see that's been added, the Templars continued to have significant influence on operative masonry in England. In 1271, the future Edward I visited Palestine, where he collaborated with the Grand Master of the Templars, and on his return, he determined to build Templar-style castles as part of his secret plan to first fortify London and then conquer Wales and Scotland. Grand Master of the Templars in Palestine, not Jerusalem. See it? Palestine. This is where the wizardry comes in. If you can't see it, if you're not looking to it, you've not got the discernment, you miss it. And so every single Freemason that's alive today on these islands has been defrauded. Defrauded because they want to be defrauded, because their resonance isn't with learning the truth. It's they want funny money. They want power. They want to be esteemed. They want to feel loved. He determined to build Templar-style castles as part of his secret plan to first fortify London and then conquer Wales and Scotland. He ordered his keeper of the works to manage the craftsmen and to extract money from the reluctant Jews to help finance his architectural projects. Like his father, Edward made the Templars guardians of the royal treasury. So his father had also been doing deals with the Templars, Christians. And they also held the tallage of London and the Jews. Thus, the Knights were involved in these Masonic Jewish negotiations. And it ended with them throwing them out. So the Templars weren't Jewish. Edward wasn't Jewish. You can see that when his wife died, he was in love with that woman. And he built the crosses on her funeral march to London. The only one remaining today is Charing Cross. That's the final cross left from Edward I, planting crosses on his journey down to London to bury his beloved wife. These guys were serious Christians. They were not Jewish at all. Closely affiliated with the Templars was the crusading order of St. Thomas of Acre, and Edward I employed Brother John of St. Thomas as master of the king's works. Okay? None of these orders were Jewish, but they keep sticking the word in. This is what Freemasons today get shoved down the neck and believe because they're not the brightest on the tree. An operative mason who worked with the keeper of works and master mason, and that's John of St. Thomas. John was given responsibility over the Tower, Westminster Palace, and King's Mews. But here we go. But who first built the city of Jerusalem, right? So this is so now this is Josephus, who was a Jewish historian, by the way, and by Christianity, he was left alone. And then a lot of this stuff that comes out today, people are going, oh, well, it must be true because Josephus said it. Josephus was a Jewish historian and a Jewish elitist back in his day. So he was obviously tied to the Carthaginians. And this is why Christendom, Aryan Christendom, ignored him. And he said, just to tap into this garbage, but he who first built the city of Jerusalem was a potent man amongst the Canaanites. Now you get into Jewish law, who did he hate? The Canaanites. Yet, the guy that built Jerusalem, that they're all bigging up and parading around and saying we are it, was a Canaanite. And was in our tongue, Jewish, called Melchizedek. So in the Jewish tongue, this particular guy that founded Jerusalem, a Canaanite, was called Melchizedek, the righteous king. For such he really was, on which account he was there for the first priest of God. God, singular, remember, pulling in this garden God over everybody else that have pretty much got the three chakras in order. This guy's running around trying to force himself on the garden. And first built a temple there and called the city Jerusalem, which was formerly called Salem. Okay? So there you have it. If you use discernment, you don't get fooled by the words we just read. You can see that the guy was a Canaanite, the Jews ate Canaanites. Right, enter the Venetians. The Venetian takeover of England proceeded in two phases. The first began with the House Stanley, placing the House of Tudor on the throne, and was expanded in the 1530s under Henry VIII, with the break from Rome's religious jurisdiction engineered by Thomas Cromwell. The later, more radical phase was the takeover of England by the Giovanni, the young ones, of Paolo Sarpi, beginning 70 years later. So 70 years after Henry VIII did his gig, remember, Christianity up until that point was all in the monasteries. That's what Aryan Christianity was. The first gig was the Angevins coming in. Eleanor of Aquitaine was the psycho. She's buried today with the book. She was a woman of the written word, not the spoken word. You've got to see it in this symbolism, because this is what it means when you can see the game. So Paolo Sarpi created a bunch of people called the Giovannis, and they were classed as the young ones. Yeah, Cliff Richard. Yeah, all these people symbolising this stuff, and you don't know it. Paolo Sarpi is a very important guy in the Venetian takeover of this country. And what's he called? Oh, I can't remember his bloody name again. There is a guy who has written copious about Paolo Sarpi, and I forgot his name again. He's a lovely chap. March 24th, today, so we're on point. In 1603, King James VI of Scotland acceded to the English and Irish throne as His Majesty King James I. James I was born in 1566 at Edinburgh Castle in Scotland as the only child of Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley, and Mary Queen of Scots, thus making him a second great-grandson of His Majesty Henry VII, the first Tudor on the throne, remember, put on by the Stanleys. Through both his parents. Okay, so he was related to Henry VII by both parents. James succeeded to the Scottish throne at the age of 13, months after his mother Mary was compelled to abdicate in his favour. So 13 months old, and this fella called James is slapped on the Scottish throne. So obviously, he has a regent. 4 different regents governed during his minority, which ended officially in 1578, though he did not gain full control of his government until 1583. On this day, 24th of March, 1603, so we're on point, upon the death of the childless Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth I, James acceded to the throne as His Majesty King James I. So 24th of March, so important. You know, they don't do this stuff for nothing. He continued to reign in all 3 kingdoms for 22 years, a period known as the Jacobean era. After the union of the crowns, he based himself in England, the largest of the 3 realms, from 1603, only returning to Scotland once in 1617, and styled himself King of Great Britain and Ireland. His English coronation was held in July 1603. Enter the Jewish mysticism. In 1615, when an English scholar presented a favourable report on the new and Judaized Templars to King James VI and I, so all of a sudden, Henry's done his gig, the moneylenders are in, yeah, but they're not obviously overpowering everything yet, but they're in. They're Judaizing the guilds, they're Judaizing the aristocracy. And so they've already rewritten everything about the Templars on England, and now they're presenting it to King James. He stressed that the surviving documents of the medieval Masons showed that the Knights were so devoted to the most holy and famous temple of Jerusalem that their architect designed the church to look like a Jewish temple. Well, as we've just seen, that's utter shite. So for James to be, even for a second, because he was an intelligent guy, shows that he wasn't fooled. This is part of the gig. It looked like a Jewish temple or synagogue. So again, can you see how it's all, they've got in, and they've got the man on the throne, coming via Scotland. Edward I knew what he was doing, but his son's French wife, operating for the same, ensured. It's always the females. This is how they've done it, folks. The women, the whores, the priestesses of the whore, not necessarily converting their husband, but making sure the offspring follow this new gig. You can trace that everywhere when you're tracing these bloodlines and how they've done it. It's always by putting a female in, and then from there it's all tits up from there. This report was especially interesting to James, an initiated Freemason. He obviously failed to recognise the St. Mary bit. The Stuarts are a royalty married with various royal bloodlines. The Stuarts produced 6 Grand Masters of the Scottish Rite Freemasonry, produced 1 Grand Master for the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, and have married with top Zionist families, including the Rothschilds, the Guggenheims, and Goldsmiths. Now, there's 2 names I want you to remember from that last video I've just played with the music. First, I want you to remember that image of King George VI, who had lung cancer. But look at his wife, the Queen Mother. A prime example of a priestess of the whore. She looks it. She always did. Evil woman. And King George V could obviously knew what was going on, didn't like it, and he went off the game at 56 or 57. Produced 1 Grand Master for the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, and have married the top Zionist families, including the Rothschilds, Guggenheims, and Goldsmith. Now remember, there were a lot of data to show that Diana was actually a goldsmith. James Goldsmith, I think, was her father, and she looks very much like his daughters. So it had teeth. Okay, so as I said before, the only evidence I've been unable to find, because there isn't any, is that Diana is dead. The Stuarts Hudson Bay Company is a fraudulent tax contract with the United States and Canada through sale of their land to the corporate governments. The Stuart family is a large royal criminal bloodline, the current noble titles of peerage in Ireland, Scotland, Nova Scotia, and England. They are the essence of evil and self-righteousness. They are completely ruthless, One Scottish family branch currently holds the title of Marquess of Bute and own a large palace called Mount Stuart House. They ruled as the monarchs of Scotland and England for a period of time and intermarried with the Bourbon, Hanover and Wittelsbach royal families as well as the English royals. Now, I'm going to show you an image that you will have seen in the Holy See families. And this guy stands out. Prince Franz Wittelsbach. Now, them teeth, there's just something about this guy. He oozes power. Well, the Stuarts are allied with that particular Holy See family. The Stuarts also merged a branch with the Spanish Dukes of Alba. They are married with the Goldsmith, Guggenheim and Guinness banking families. Now, we looked at the Guinness families last week, did we not? The Stuart family branched off from the Bruce clan of Scotland. Andrew Bruce, 11th Earl of Elgin, is the head of the House of Bruce and a former Grand Master Mason for Scotland. Andrew Bruce is one of the highest level Freemasons in Scotland. Many Scottish peers are high level Freemasons and use their authority and command over the Masonic Brotherhood to create a fence for the House of Windsor and other high level royalty. So they act as a fence, a front. Freemasons in the United States infiltrate government, politics, law and business and serve the Grand Lodges of England, Scotland and Ireland. Now, all the military lodges in this country are found in Ireland, okay, Northern Ireland. The name Stuart derives from steward, which refers to deputy or second in command. So when the Stuarts were on the throne in England, they were only second in command. To what? The original deputies of the fraudulent House of Normandy and the latter became loyal to the Bavarian House of Wittelsbach. So Wittelsbach are Bavarian through Jacobitism, while pretending to be loyal to the House of Windsor. Duke Franz of Bavaria is the heir to the Stuart crown and who the Stuarts really serve. Okay, so Duke Franz in Bavaria is who the Stuarts are serving. The Irish Stuart holds the title of Earl Castle Stuart and Arthur Patrick Avondale Stuart, the 8th Earl of Castle Stuart, and his son, Viscount Andrew Richard Charles Stuart. As the heads of this family branch, Arthur Stuart, 8th Earl Castle Stuart, is the son of Eleanor May Guggenheim of the very wealthy Guggenheim family, which are also married with the wealthy Rothschilds family. Arthur Stuart and Princess Sibylla of Luxembourg are members of the Peggy Guggenheim Collection Advisory Board. Arthur Stuart's cousin Peter Lawson Johnson is a high-level member of the Guggenheim family. The Stuarts manage many Jewish billionaires, including the Rothschilds, Goldsmiths and Guggenheims. So the Stuarts manage them, okay, as second in command to the Wittelsbach. The Bavarians, are you seeing this? So the Stuarts manage many Jewish billionaires, including the Rothschilds, Goldsmiths and Guggenheims, which covertly work with the Walton family. Who's the Walton family? That's Walmart. Okay, Walmart. Asda. Isa Brothers. What are they? Fronts. Working for whom? The Walton family. The Rothschilds. So that's why I say it's Rothschilds' money. They're just a front to excite the Muslims. Okay, that they've got power. The 2018 Guggenheim International Gala honoured the Edmund de Rothschild Foundation with Alice Walton, the sister of Jim Walton. Jim Walton is worth over 40 billion, named his son Stuart Walton, and it is actually spelt that way, after the House of Stuart. So they named him specifically after the House of Stuart, but gave it a different spell. Frederick Schiller and William Shakespeare both analysed the manipulative methods employed by the Venetian secret intelligence establishment. Both considered Venetian intelligence one of their most formidable enemies. So Shakespeare, all these things. And I do know who Shakespeare was, but we'll get into that another time. So what you're getting through Shakespeare is England, merry old England, Christians, telling you in a way that they could to get away with it, what bastards these Venetians were and how disgusting. This is your black nobility, people. Much of Sully's writing is dedicated in various ways to fighting Venice and Genoa. Geneva combination. Okay, Venice, Genoa, Geneva. Yeah, what's at Geneva? CERN. When did they do that twisted ritual? Geneva. So it's not Switzerland as a whole. It's Geneva specifically, which is more of the French side of Switzerland. The Germanic side of Switzerland I find to be exceptionally good. They're good people. They're very to the point. They don't mess about. But they've looked after my website since about 2013. Well, 2 websites. This is the second one I've had in Switzerland. And a Geneva combination that held the financiers' reigns of King Philip II of Spain. Shakespeare's Othello, the Moor of Venice, is a more finished analysis of the same technique. It was written and performed shortly after 1603, when the Venetians and the Genoese had acquired vast powers in England through the accession of their puppet James I to the throne. Venice was at the centre of the efforts to destroy the advanced European civilization of the 11th and 12th centuries and bears a crushing burden of guilt for the ascendancy of the Black Guelphs, or Welfs, and the coming of the Black Plague. Okay, so the Aryan Christianity was being destroyed by these bastards. And the Welfs, the Black Welfs, in battle with the Hohenstaufens, were operating with the Vatican. And so the Vatican at that time, the Holy See families had the people in there. Especially the Medici, the Farnese. Okay? And there's another one I can't just remember offhand. The Venetians were the intelligencers for the Mongol army of Genghis Khan and his heirs, and had a hand in guiding them to the sack of Baghdad and the obliteration of its renaissance in the 13th century. How long have I been telling you? How long have I been telling you that this, when you look at the prophecies about this East coming over, and everybody thinks it's Arabs. How can it be Arabs? The South. It's the East, and it's these bastards, the Mongols, and everything that was set up at the other side of Russia. Remember, Stalin entered Berlin and they raped to death every single female to the tune, some say 2.5 million, some say 3.5 million. Grandmas, mothers, daughters and babies. They raped them in the streets, in the churches, in the pubs, in the theatres, everywhere. A Mongol army. Remember, the Bolsheviks had annihilated the Russians. They annihilated the Russians. Bolsheviks, of course, being funded by the inner city of London through the New York Federal Reserve banking system. Prescott Bush. So Prescott Bush, the grandfather of George W., the father of George H., he was the bootlegger. But he was the middleman between the funding and finances of IG Farben, which is Hitler's war machine, and also, before that, with the Bolshevik Revolution. Got to see it like this, people. So this is the Venetians, who are operating as intelligence systems for the Mongol army of Genghis Khan and his heirs. Okay? See, people, this is what's missing, and you'll get this. And this I got in Masonic books. The Venetians were the mortal enemies of the humanist Paleolog dynasty in Byzantium. They were the implacable foes of the Gemistos, Plethon, Cosimo de Medici, Leonardo da Vinci, Niccolo Machiavelli, and the entirety of the Florentine Golden Renaissance. So again, not all these families, not all these orders were from the get-go bad. They've been taken over. and the future offspring of these families, through them implementing the females, the priestesses of the whore, ensured the offspring moved ever further to the building of this evil eye manifestation. Right? So even the Medicis, Cosimo originally, they weren't necessarily bad people. They were operating still for the Christian ideology. The battles were going on and they were strong. But when you look at all the data that's been put in since 1600s, Joseph Scaliger being a major player in that, they've rewritten everything. We cannot trust the chronology and we can't trust what's written, especially before 1600s. We can't trust it because it's been completely and utterly Judaized. They've stuck the word fucking Jew everywhere. Everywhere to take you right off the game. If you want to know, look at what they're doing. Have you seen the garbage that's coming out of the Israelis' mouths today? They're threatening everybody. Everybody. They're saying if you don't back us now, we'll not forget. We'll kill you. They threaten Russia. Look what's just happened. ISIS were formed through Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. They admitted it when they formed it. And it means Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. That's what ISIS is. But Putin's working for it also, which is why there were no emergency services there in the time you'd expect with what were actually going on. The Venetians were the mortal enemies of... Oh, I've done that, sorry. Venetian influence was decisive in cutting off the Elizabethan epoch in England and in opening the door to the lugubrious Jacobean era, so that's James I, but also begun by Henry VII, the Tudors, pulled in by the House Stanley, the Earls of Derby. Now Catholics hold these people up in high regard. The evil eye cult. So they're now pushing the eye and manifestation of the Aryan Christendom, which included Rome, the Western Rome, and even indeed in Byzantine Rome, before the Venetians annihilated it and handed it over to the fruit bats, the Persians, who then formed a caliphate on the back of that. This is why Turkey's all involved. Everything comes through Turkey. And this Eastern gig has come through Turkey. Then we can go back to Sabbatai Zevi. We can go back to Jacob Frank as aspects of this Eastern influx into Islam through Sabbatai Zevi and Jacob Frank into Catholicism. Everything comes through Turkey. All this immigration is coming through Turkey. The evil eye cult. So now we're getting into, we can see plainly that something else has took over what we manifested as Aryan Christianity in the West. The northern races. The northern races who held Ursa Major as our main symbol as it traversed the pole star. Yeah, that was our main symbol. We know it today as the swastika. That were our symbol as the northern tribes, the Aryans, the Aryan Christians. And if I'll tell you what I've cocked up. I shifted it out. Just give me a second, just to show you. You can see the symbolism that they've pushed in here. When they actually took full power of the Aryan Christendom. With this. This is the symbolism that they started to thrust everywhere. When the cube took over the Aryan Christendom. Now, I forgot to put this in at the beginning, but the way that they use this Star of Remphan is we know the energy comes up, then it's stopped at the heart. So the energy from the solar plexus through fear comes back down to the root, and the root is then controlling the three. It's inverted, okay? And they symbolize that control of the Aryan nations in that symbol. Okay. During the period of Jewish Masonic craft transmission, there was also a proliferation of Jewish mystical fraternities who developed a visionary theosophy centered on the building of Solomon's temple. So this didn't come in until way after, but yet they've presented it as the Templar gig on England way back in the midst of time, when really it didn't start to come in until now, right? James the first time. And that was about destroying the monarchy on England. They'd already captured it through Robert the Bruce, by the way, in Scotland, way back in the midst of time. Because the Templars that he were playing with were Judaized Templars, not the English Templars that we had here. And it was the Christian Templars that were attacked, by the way, by Philip the Fair. There was a proliferation of Jewish mystical fraternities who developed a visionary theosophy centered on the building of Solomon's temple. The seminal work of this movement, the Sefer Yetzirah, revealed an architectural mysticism based on disciplined techniques of meditation. Now, this is where I've said to you before, the cheat sheet. Okay. Now, they use it and use the term Sefer Yetzirah, which is using the third eye to manifest reality. Okay. Now, they've twisted it up, which we'll get to in a little bit, just to give you an example of the difference between what these shits do, because they've bypassed the spiritual laws. They've just learned the data and managed to read it, study it, and apply it. And this is Babylon. This is the evil pyramid, the eye on the pyramid that they've been building. But you're building it for them. That's the key to it, you see. The Sefer Yetzirah revealed an architectural mysticism based on disciplined techniques of meditation. As Idel explains, the mystical language of the Sefer Yetzirah has a Masonic function, for the letters and words serve as building blocks. Now you're into Kabbalah, okay? This is the Kabbalah system, but remember, they inverted it when it's presented out there in the mystical traditions. So you can only build the opposite of what it is you're trying to build. So, you know, a lot of these people, the Christians and that, have all been taught that anything to do with this kind of stuff is evil. In its inversion, it is evil. But if you want to apply yourself to actually discipline the manifestation that you want to create, these are the systems that the Druids used in order to create what we know as Aryan Christendom. Letters are regarded as stones, as fully fledged entities, as components intended to build up an edifice of words to serve as a temple for God. Now, this word God, I've said before, is a misnomer because it completely and utterly takes you away from Genesis 1 and fixes you into the garden and a place of encountering Him for the mystic. After the temple was destroyed, man is supposed to rebuild the temple. No, man isn't. Jesus destroyed that temple by getting enough people to understand, especially the Romans, what he represented. Man is supposed to rebuild the temple in his ritual use of language. The Masonic aspects of the divine and human activity reveal a hidden and mighty dimension of the Hebrew letters, which enable operations that can bridge the gap between the human or the material and the divine. The Hebrew letters also had numerical correspondences, and the complex linguistic numerical computations of the Sefer Yetzirah became relevant to the mathematical skills of architects and masons. Imitating God's creative process, and adept undertakes a Masonic process of letter number combination, meditation and visualization. 22 letters are the foundation. Now you see what they're doing here, it's the same with the spoken word, the written word, okay? They're making it sound so complex that you have to join these Jewish societies in order that you can build as an architect these massive constructions that we know they've built and that we also know they've been destroying for at least 2 centuries across Europe, across the world even, because they did it in the United States. There were star forts all over Siberia as well. And that's where what they're trying to do now is sell it with Tartaria. Bullshit. There was a huge northern empire and it was Aryan Christianity. It had nothing to do with Tartars. Tartars were a little tiny area stuck up somewhere near China. And I believe that that's the place that Stalin created for the Jews when it were his time. This Israel is not for the real Jews. This Israel is for the fruitcakes that they'd picked up from Khazari when Catherine the Great and the Prussian Empire demolished the Crimea and pulled them all into the pogroms in Russia to control them, fed them finance, and then sent them into all the nations that the Prussian Empire invaded and set it up, this financial system based on the King James Bible. The Hebrew letters also had a numerical correspondences in the complex. I've done that. So they made it look complex, so complex that everybody believed they had to join these secret societies, which basically means you're joining it, you're taking an oath to keep your mouth shut. Now the Khazars, when I studied the Khazars, interestingly, the way they kept their race thick and stupid to the point that they sacrificed their offspring was anybody that was born that talked too much, they killed them. They killed them. This is another version of that. You get you to join a secret society, you're oath to keep your mouth shut, they've got you. And as long as you think you're learning something, you're not looking at it in that respect. The great significance of the Sefer Yetzirah to both Jewish and Christian Masonic traditions lies in this interpretation of meditation techniques in terms drawn from operative masonry. Kaplan notes that the Hebrew letters can be used as a powerful means of drawing down spiritual energy, especially through the technique of holding an image in the mind's eye. Okay? Again, they're making it complex. It's true that words will pull down spiritual energy, but that's been afforded, you call them natives, don't you? Aborigines, Native Americans. That's what they used. That's why they were killing them. Gaelic is another. It's another language that connects directly as a spoken frequency to your astral body. Native Americans did it. The Aborigines did it and do it. This is why they've killed all these tribes. This is why the English, or the Germanic English, when they took over here, killed so many of the Irish. And if you catch you speaking Gaelic, they used to beat the living daylights out of you. You weren't allowed to speak to your offspring in these languages because it spoke directly to the astral body. The great significance of the 7 years of all Jews, Christians, blah, 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 blah. I've done that, sorry. The Sefer Yetzirah refers to two processes in depicting the letters, engraving, chakika and hewing, chitsafa. The term engraving denotes fixing an image in the mind's eye so that it does not waver or move. When the image is clear and steady, engraved in the mind, as it were, it is usually surrounded by other images. The next step is to isolate it and rid the mind's eye of all other imagery. This is known as hewing or chatsiva. The analogy is to hewing out a stone from the surrounding rock. The process consists in designating the desired stone and then hewing away all the extraneous imagery surrounding the desired form. Now that is, in fact, how that works. Blumenthal's startling computer analysis of the Masonic gematria process of meditation based on the incantation, he put them in order like a kind of wall, reveals that the letters and the numerical equivalents actually form a pictorial wall when printed out from the computer. Similarly, the computer prints out the gematria of he made them like a kind of sunset, as a picture of radiating sunset. The mystical capacity to visualize the architectural and pictorial expression of complex mathematical and geometrical speculation became associated with the practical expertise of the architect and master mason. In the schools of Merkaba mysticism, Jewish adepts increasingly portrayed Solomon as an architectural magus and his master mason Bezalel. Well, this is bullshit because Solomon incorporated all the demons who taught him. This is what the Templars were after. This is the knowledge the Templars gained and started to build the big architecture that they did. You've got Christendom and you've got everywhere else. There weren't really anything being built anywhere else if you look at it. All this architecture was being built in the northern hemisphere by the Aryans, the Christians. But these tossers want you to see it as them are fantastic. And I'm not going to go into it in depth, but if you've got discernment and you're aware of these traditions, you should be able to see through this garbage. But I'll give you an insight into how you can see through it in a moment. So Solomon, as they portray him, was actually a magician, a black magician, who entrapped all the demons, and he gained all his knowledge from that. He was shagging every race on the planet. He had children all over the shop. And then if you go with his father David, he made it look like a child in relation to how evil he was. The guy was an evil bastard. It's there to be seen. I'm not immense. If you've studied these people, King David was an absolute psychopath on every level. So thus Bezazel knew how to combine the letters by which heavens and earth were formed. I don't think so. While he and his Merkaba urge could visualize and manipulate the measure of the body of God, called the Sheesh or comma. At a time when Christian churches architecture was beginning to develop from its Jewish temple and synagogue roots, well, we've just explored that Christian architecture had nothing to do with the Jewish temple, nothing to do with the synagogue, and nothing to do with Solomon's temple. Okay? So can you see how they've fettered this stuff with bullshit? And they've been doing it since the 1600s. Okay? Before even. But it started in the 1500s with Henry VIII. But it really took hold once they got rid of Charles I and fully imported everything that they needed to do to completely take over the nation. Abolished the office of monarch. The Privy Council took over and they feigned a monarch back with Charles II. When really it was these Venetian monarchies, aristocrats that were running it from that time. With the spread of Islam, the pattern of sectarian warfare was occasionally broken by periods of toleration in Muslim-controlled territories, when there was much interchange between Muslims, Jewish and Christian architects and masons who developed shared guild traditions of Solomon as magical architect of the temple. Again, that's false, because when you actually study the Arabic races who became Muslims, they held all their knowledge before Islam was formed. They lost it all as Islam took hold. And that is a fact. You can study, if you study this stuff, these races, the Arabs, you might call them the Semites, they held all their knowledge, which was quashed at the invention of Islam. It just became a war. It was all about war after that. In the 10th century, the Sufi Brethren of Sincerity, an esoteric religious fraternity of craftsmen, affirmed the Jewish origins of philosophy and science. See, can you see it's just bullshit, this? Merkaba meditation techniques and Solomonic temple mysticism into their guild teachings. So it were put in there in the 10th century. The Sufis, the Magi, who gave the knowledge to the Templars but made it clear to the Templars that they'd given them the knowledge, but only they, the Sufis, the Magi, understood the true meaning of the cross. It's all bullshit. And every Freemason today is sucking this shit up. Sucking it up. Probably because they don't actually understand it. Shaw sees the origin of Gothic and modern Freemasonry in these Sufi fraternities. Now, Gothic architecture is disgusting, in my opinion. It resonates a bad frequency. So there you can see now there's been a shift, that these Gothic traditions, this Gothic shit, is when this Jewish mysticism, the Sufi mysticism, has basically implemented itself in the Masonic guilds across Europe. And they're mixing it up, giving it and pushing it on the Muslims, when in fact that's garbage. It just didn't happen. And all this was formed in Morocco, by the way, when during the Crusades, the Muslims couldn't go to Mecca. They had to go to Morocco. And Morocco is a centre of this shit that's been installed on the Arabic races, on the Semites as a whole, by this Mongol Eastern fruitcake shit. There are always real fraternities. They have strong mystical tendencies. They attach great importance to the peculiar traditions and rites, which may be strange, complicated, moving and beautiful. They manage to combine the most mullish obscurantism in certain matters with liberalism in others, or rather receptiveness to erratic ideas unpopular outside the tariqa or guild. They often obtain considerable popularity, influence and power. Their power might become political, even military. Well, there's no military, is there, in heaven? You've gone right off. You're building the evil eye manifestation. That's why it's on the dollar bill. All that system represents the evil eye system, and we're manifesting it for them. because we've lost control of ourselves. We do not trust the kingdom within. We're screwed up at the 3 bottom chakras. We're like child's play for these things to manipulate. We buy the poisons, we give them our energy, we give them the wealth. We do it. There are always real fraternities that have done that. However, study of the natural sciences and mathematics led some heterodox Jews in southern Spain to affirm that physical beauty and erotic desire were esoteric emblems of divine nature. So then you can see a lot of this stuff being imported, the Sufi sex, tantric stuff into the cathedrals. A lot of the entrances are clearly a vagina with a clitoris. You know, all this came from the Sufi, the Magi side, over there in the east. And you can see it completely taking over. I mean, in Germany, Dresden, that bombing campaign by Bomber Command was to annihilate the greatest of the remaining architecture from the Aryan architecture. You know, that's what it was about. How many of you sat there watching Bomber? Pure evil. They absolutely murdered millions of civilians, kids, everything, just to get rid of the architecture. So you can see, and I said last time, the architecture and the third eye systems are so intertwined, and they've had to destroy what was fantastic and great in order to put up this shit and tell you that you're evolving. Or you're sucking it up. So desire was esoteric emblems of divine nature which should be expressed exoterically in the mathematical and geometrical emblems of Solomonic architecture. They felt free to defy the biblical injunction against graven images because Solomon, the builder of fabled palaces and temples, was the biblical champion of these heresies. In the 11th century Granada, under the tolerant Muslim government, the Jewish Nagarala family drew on the esoteric law of the Sefer Yetzirah to create a new symbolistic architecture. It wasn't new. During this period of Spanish Enlightenment, Christian and Jewish craftsmen were allowed to join Muslim guilds, and their possible participation in the Alhambra project is especially provocative because of the surprisingly proto-Gothic designs in the palace. According to Nagarala's poetic spokesman Solomon ibn Gabriel, the father was a new Solomon and the son a new Hiram of Tyre, the father of all inventors, who wrote all the works of the house of God. Ibn Gabriel's poetry of architecture and mysticism drew on the Sefer Yetzirah, and it became significant influence on medieval Christian philosophers, because they were no longer Christian anymore, who eventually believed that he was an Arabic philosopher known as Avicebron. One Christian student of Avicebronist synthesis was Michael Scott, 1217, who left his native Scotland to study with Jews and Arabs in Toledo, Spain, where he incorporated the number symbolism of the Sefer Yetzirah into his mathematical, astronomical and linguistic theories. Moving to Sicily, Scott worked with the Jewish savant Jacob ben Anatole and Latin translations of Aristotle, Maimonides and other Christian philosophers. Non-Christian philosophers. Maimonides, by the way, is the philosopher who's given this bunch of Talmudists the idea and right to behead all non-believers, to decapitate everybody, kill everybody. That's Maimonides. Okay? So you can see now that this sickness is totally spreading across Christendom. And Anatoly is one of the most significant in medieval thought. Fascinated by Solomonic traditions, Scott gained access to Jewish and Arabic mystical works on mathematics, magic and alchemy. They weren't Arabic works. Okay, let's just get this right. This was this shit that had been pushed in all across the Semitic world. After consulting with the Grand Master of the Templars, the heterodox Emperor Frederick II asked Scott to accompany him to Jerusalem, where he won the peaceful surrender of the city by promising religious toleration to the Jewish and Muslim inhabitants. Scott made notes on his observations in Palestine, and when he returned to Scotland circa 1230, he brought with him a unique knowledge of Jewish, Muslim and Crusader lore. Fevre stresses Scott's seminal role in transmitting Arabic theosophical methods to the West, especially the distinction between esotericism and exotericism. So you can see why Edward I was doing battle with the Scots, because they were this shit system, totally anti-Christian, not Aryan. Yeah. The complementary nature of which can be understood like spiritual exegesis, the Tar will, a tradition developed in Scotland that Scott also brought back architectural skills which he used to build a great stone bridge across the Tweed. In the 19th century, when Sir Walter Scott, an active Freemason, described Old Michael as a Scottish patriot, Kabbalistic magician, and infernal architect, he drew on earlier fraternal lore. In the 13th century, the conception of sublime matter advocated by Avisperon and expressed in Hebrew mystical poetry was viewed as subversive to Catholic teaching by Thomas Aquinas, who also chastised the Gothic architects, who calls themselves sages, for similar heresies. So you can see there's a complete contradiction between this Jewish shit, or mystical Sufi shit, and the then Christian, Aryan Christianity. However, another Scottish scholar, John Duns Scotus, imitated Michael Scott and left his northern homeland in search of Hebrew and Arabic learning. The Jewish relationship with the craftsman who built York is further illustrated by the Jess window, which includes the Seal of Solomon enclosing an old seeing eye and mason's compass. The fragments of the traditional lore of the Jewish guilds were preserved by Christian masons is revealed in the surviving English document of operative masonry, the Cook MS circa 1400. Well, yes, Judaized, of course. In which the scribe drew on the Sefer Yetzirah, an extra-biblical Jewish sources when he described the origins and development of the craft. The Jewish-Christian Masonic synthesis flourished. It wasn't Jewish synthesis, it was a takeover. During rare periods of toleration, but it also developed during the Intolerant Crusades, when knights from Scotland, England and France and other Christian kingdoms observed, analysed and sketched the great stone palaces and fortifications that Jews and Muslims had built in the Middle East. The Knights Templar assimilated Eastern design and technology into their enormous fortified castles. They were nothing to do with Jewish, remember, and they were fighting the Muslims. For the rest of the century, rival systems of masonry, ancient Jacobite versus modern Hanoverian, would struggle for dominance. But yet, the Jacobite and the Hanoverian are in sync together because both were operating for the Venetians. So again, you can see the word wizardry and the play in this. Most people are not discerning that. This is how they get you. Though Jews joined both systems, a greater number were attracted to the Hebraic and Kabbalistic themes of the Ecosias higher degrees. In the 18th and 19th centuries, when Jews in North and South America became princes of the temple in Scottish Rite lodges, they seemed to reenact the great Stuart masques, which had failed to heal the old kingdoms but helped to liberate the new republics. As Dr. Isaac Wise, Scottish Rite Mason and leader of American Reformed Judaism, would affirm in 1855. Masonry is a Jewish institution, but its beauty and pride is its universal character, its tendency to fraternalise mankind. See, everything has been rewritten to put it at the feet of the Judahites, when in fact it's garbage. They stole the knowledge and they've been killing everybody, putting in the females to uproot every aristocracy because they had the money, the gold, the trade. Phoenicians, remember. Yeah, I can't see. When I was studying all this back in the day, I couldn't understand how Masons couldn't see it. Now, they've presented it as an idea that you have to be mathematically, geometrical, supremely intelligent in order to utilise the third eye and create great things. That's exactly as I've said, in order that you think and believe you have to join these fraternities to get the data, when all it's about is getting you to join, or to shut your mouth. They've controlled you. This guy is the fine example. The spiritual eye. Nikola Tesla. There can be no doubt that of all the frictional remittances, the one that most retains human movement, or retards human movement, is ignorance. Not without reason, said the man of wisdom. Buddha, ignorance is the greatest evil in the world. The friction which results from ignorance, and which is greatly increased owing to the numerous languages and nationalities, can be reduced only by the spread of knowledge and the unification of the heterogeneous elements of humanity. What's heterogeneous to humanity? The kingdom within. Everything else is being given to you from the outside. Ignorance is put in the written word because the word wizards have made it so. You're off the path, you're gone. But all comes down to the negative balances within the first three chakras that you or yourself, all by yourself, are existing under. This is where they get you. The problem of increasing human energy, with special reference to the harnessing of the sun's energy, Century Illustrated magazine, June 1900, and that's Nikola Tesla. Now, this is interesting, alright? This is a man who we know makes it very clear the way he does what he does. He forms it all in the mind's eye. He builds it in the mind's eye. He doesn't go anywhere near scientific method. All goes on in there. Then when it's complete in his mind's eye, he builds it. And remember when we did those interviews, we did that, the interviews with the guy or female representing a ruling class said he got it. His mistake was he went to the wrong twats. He went to the builders of the evil eye system with his knowledge, and they just milked it. And then had to deal with him because they were terrified that left alone, they'd lose power. Can you see? Fear. All fear that builds this evil eye system. Now, Nikola Tesla and his brother manifested thoughts into matter. Now, yeah, but they still had to build it. Whereas when you get into the biblical stuff, you look at Abraham, the way they present it is like, oh, Abraham thought about a goat, and a goat appeared and he milked it and then ate it. Can you see how they talk bollocks? Right? They manifested the thoughts, the third eye vision, and made it happen. That's what they did. That's what this manifestation is. So when you get that vision in your third eye of an idea, you'll make it manifest, won't you? You'll go about your business and do it. Yeah, they make it complex, like nobody can do this unless you're expert on all this maths and geometry, but when really it's a simple mechanic. And the more of a cleansed creature you are, the better your manifestation is going to be. So is it in sync with spiritual law, or is it building the evil eye? He said that he was able to see the connection between imagination that he had in his mind and also the physical objects. Like even when he was very young, he calls it as an affliction. When he had a word and object appear before him, it was so tangible that he could even put his hand through it. And his brother Dan also had similar experience, probably with genetics or something. Siddhas and yogis can create dimensional objects in their minds. So this is a very interesting thing that happened to him, which can be explained scientifically as well as from the point of view of siddhi powers explained by the siddhis and yogas. They are able to create things from their minds, create dimensional objects. Manifestation of dimensional objects is written about in Kabbalah texts, but of course they do it in a different way. Okay. And also remember that the Jewish tradition, particularly the Zohar, which is Jewish mystical text of the Kabbalah and Kabbalists, you see, it's not a Jewish mystical text. They nicked it. The Kabbalah isn't a Jewish mystical text. They nicked it. And then claimed it as their own, like they've been doing forever. Like they create chronology to make them look biggest, bestest, baddest and goodest. That's what they've done. Joseph Scaliger, a major player in doing that. If you're looking at today's books, knowledge, whatever you're getting, it's all been manipulated. Name and form are one in the same. You know, this is fascinating to me, and I want to do something with it during this program. It excites me, and you know this has been precisely explained by the siddhas and the yogis by saying that the name and the form are one and the same. The name, the idea, and the object, as Plato would talk about it. So this knowledge is ancient, and it was known a lot more than it is today. They took it away. Now, this is an interesting concept because there's a big play about a lot of people say that Nikola Tesla was Jewish. No, he wasn't. He was Croatian. His father was a Christian priest, and his mother was a seriously Christian as well. Now, according to Deciphering, attempted to rationalise nationalism by somehow ignoring its core element of racial supremacism. So this guy, Deciphering, okay, tied into Nazism, okay, so opposing this Jewish system, was Nikola Tesla's best mate. Okay, so if Nikola Tesla was Jewish in any way, shape, or form, or operating this third eye manifestation system through the Jewish system, he wouldn't in any way, shape, or form have continued, which he did for the rest of his life, to be friends with this guy. Not an anti-Semite, having, for instance, co-written a series of books with the Jewish professor Virek, a lifelong German apologist, was nevertheless somehow able to rationalise the nationalist spiel, and he became an American spokesman for Adolf Hitler. Although Virek associate Sigmund Freud saw in his journalistic lion hunter a great mind, he said that Virek suffered from narcissism, had delusions of persecution and a fixation on the fatherland. So you weren't allowed to be in love with the Aryan system that were being destroyed by these fruit bats. Yeah, you were called narcissist. So nationalism, you're not allowed to have it. That's why they're destroying it. That's communism. You're not allowed to have it. And all what happened in Germany was so they could use it as an example as to what happens when you suffer from nationalism. Garbage. Once Friedrich began to rationalise Hitler's rhetoric, Freud saw the journalist as debasing himself and would not correspond with him anymore. It might be shocking for some to know that one of Nick Tesla's closest friends was quite literally a Nazi. Well, he wasn't. It was an idea that was being annihilated and everybody associates it with Nazis. Hitler was a Bolshevik. Hitler said everything everybody wanted to hear until he became Chancellor. And then everything that had been built through inner city of London, through Wall Street, IG Farben, was then launched against Germany. And what happened after the Second World War? The major force of Aryan power left at that time was Germany. They took over Russia through Bolshevism after the First World War. They put Germany on its ass because of the reparations that Germany had to pay after the First World War. What happened after the Second World War? After Stalin brought in his people and they absolutely raped to death all the women, they annihilated Germany and expanded the Bolshevik Soviet system right across Europe. And it's been there ever since. That's what we're going on. They demolished the architecture. Can you see how this game plays? It might be shocking. Yep, done that, blah, blah, blah. Okay? But anyway, I want you now to look. If you remember in that, look at those, the inner city of London in that piece before we did this, there were another name in there. Van Tempest. Okay? Earls of Londonderry. Very important. He was the man controlling Hitler on behalf of the city, the aristocrats here, who were well and truly Zionized by this time, the Second World War. So Van Tempest is very important, and he was the middleman controlling Hitler and his regime on behalf of London. So let's have a look at some of the Stuarts today. Okay? Arthur Patrick Avondale Stuart, 8th Earl Castle Stuart. Looks, don't they just look lovely? Don't they? Chief John Mackenzie, the 5th Earl of Cromarty, is loyal to the Stuarts and Whittlebacks. Mark Walter is the CEO of Guggenheim Partners. Now, I had to miss a lot of stuff about this guy, but from what's been written, this guy is an absolute pristine example of what you might find heading the scene in Eyes Wide Shut. That's the kind of character he's been portrayed at. I didn't want to put it up here because obviously I couldn't verify whether it's correct or not. But Alan Schwartz is the executive chairman of Guggenheim Partners. Stuart also spelt Stuart. This is below. So obviously I'm giving you the right and it's the below image. Stuart Walton was named to honour their bosses, the Stuarts, the Waltons, which is Walmart, and the Zionists worth about 160 billion. The Stuarts are Roman Catholic Protestant royalty that are married with the Jewish Rothschilds, Goldsmiths and Guggenheims. Stuart Walton, who is Jewish, was a Jesuit educated at Georgetown. The Waltons worked with the Guggenheims. And now, of course, the Isa brothers, busy taking over everything here, through the Asda, operate for this character here. Stuart Walton is an American attorney, businessman and philanthropist born into a billionaire Walton family. He is the director of Walmart, the world's largest company by revenue, and co-founder of private equity firm RZC Investments, which bought British cycling brand Rafa in 2017, and founder of Game Composites, a composite aircraft manufacturer. Don Carlos Fitzjames Stuart. Now Fitz, in any name that you find anywhere, it denotes the bastard lines of these aristocrats. So anybody with the Fitz in the name, they're coming, it's showing you that they're actually built off the bastard lines of these aristocrats. Don Carlos Fitzjames Stuart and Martinez, the Duke of Alba, is a high-level Spanish noble billionaire whose family originated as a branch of the English House of Stuart. Don Carlos and his brothers are top owners of the Puerto Rican Mafia, which was founded by the Martinez family. The Fitzjames Stuart and Alvarez families are also owners of the Los Zetas cartel. Carlos Fitzjames Stuart Martinez de Araujo, 19th Duke of Alba, de Tormes G.E. Martinez de Araujo Y. Fitzjames Stuart, born 2nd of October 1948, is a Spanish aristocrat. He is the current Duke of Alba and thereby head of the House of Alba. The House of Fitzjames, or the House of Fitzjames Stuart, is a noble house founded by James Fitzjames, 1st Duke of Berwick. He was the illegitimate son of James II and the 7th, King of England, Scotland and Ireland, a monarch from the House Stuart. This man's power. There he be. Chief Godfrey MacDonald is loyal to the Stuarts and Whittlesbacks. Well, they just look like Grandad, don't they? Chief Ewan John McLachlan is loyal to the Stuarts and Whittlesbacks, and he's got that Aggie Shagger skirt on. Rod Stewart. You never thought that, did you? Stewart. Rod Stewart, knighted by Prince William because he's a covert relative of the Stuart nobles. There you go. Shagger Bill, knighting Rod the Stewart. Patrick Stewart, knighted by Queen Elizabeth II. He's a covert relative of the Stuart nobles. Brainwashing with Star Trek. Did you know this? No, you didn't. Benedict Cumberbatch is an agent of the Stuarts. The Stuarts or Stuart are married with the Bavarian House of Whittlesbach, and they are part managers of the Order of St. Benedict or the Black Monks, and Prince Franz Joseph of Bavaria is currently a Black Monk. The Black Monks are the most blasphemous organisation on the planet, and they operate as the mind of God for the Vatican. Benedict Cumberbatch is a covert member of the Black Monks. Cumberbatch was also in the movie Doctor Strange, which is a movie designed for Illuminati initiations. And there he is, if you didn't know him by name. What a strange looking creature. Frederick Vane Tempest. Now, Vane Tempest, which we saw heavily involved in the inner city of London in that breakdown we did of inner city. Stuart Marquess of Londonderry. Now, the Marquess of Londonderry has been a very important position for Londonderry, Northern Ireland. UK column are tied to that through Robinson and Morton at the back end. They were tied into the LaRouche system, which became heavily enveloped by the Germanic ultra-right-wing Nazis and fascists that still exist today. I had a lot of trouble with the back end of UK column when it was forming. So this is Frederick Vane Tempest Stuart, Marquess of Londonderry, with Sophie Hunter, who is the wife of this fella, Benedict Cumberbatch. Okay. Now, Reginald Alexander Vane Tempest Stuart on the far right, with his wife, Chloe Guinness. Okay, can you see how they're just all intermingled? And with them is Alan Evans and Hilary Reid Evans. Reginald Vane Tempest Stuart is the younger brother of Frederick Vane Tempest Stuart. The Guinness family are Irish billionaires, bankers, money launderers and brewers. Poison piss makers. Okay? Power. Benjamin Goldsmith and Frank Zach Goldsmith are both Stuarts through their mother, and they are owners of London crime firms and gangs involved with sex trafficking underage girls. Benjamin Goldsmith is a banker who owns Menhaden, an investment firm. The Goldsmith family also co-founded Bank Paribas, one of the largest banks in the world, and the Goldsmiths still have covert part ownership of Paribas. Benjamin James Goldsmith, born October 1980, is an English financier and environmentalist. So he's tied to the Club of Rome, the WEF, and all the nonsense. The son of financier James Goldsmith and Lady Annabel Goldsmith. Now, as I said before, there was a lot of data to suggest that Diana was actually a daughter of James Goldsmith. So James Goldsmith and Lady Annabel Goldsmith is founder and CEO of London listed investment firm Menhaden, which focuses on the theme of energy and resource efficiency. Previously, he co-founded the sustainability-focused investment firm Webb, whose private equity business split away in 2014 and now trades under the name Alana Partners. There they are. Just like normal people, don't they? Yeah? I don't think they're lizards, to be honest. See, it takes you off the fact that they're just people. They're people. Does it not take you, if you're looking for lizards, you're not looking at these people as people and seeing their power. Lady Annabel Goldsmith Vane Templars Stewart with Princess of Kent. Her sons are Zach Goldsmith and Ben Goldsmith, and they have a close alliance with the Stewarts. The Goldsmiths are wealthy Jewish bankers that co-founded Paribas. Lady Annabel Goldsmith Nee Vane Templars Stewart, formerly Burley, born 11th June 1934, is an English socialite and the eponym for a celebrated London nightclub of the late 20th century. Her children include Rupert Burley, Robin Burley, India Jane Burley, Jemima Goldsmith, Zach Goldsmith, Ben Goldsmith. Wearing a cross. Yeah, I'll bet. David Thompson, the Baron of Thompson of Fleet, is worth 37 billion. He's the propaganda media agent of the House of Stuart, which overseers of Canada for the British Crown. So all the trouble you're having in Canada is David Thompson, the Baron of Thompson of Fleet. And he overseers of Canada for the British Crown since the Hudson Bay Company ruled much of Canada for about 200 years. David Kenneth Roy Thompson, 3rd Baron Thompson of Fleet, born June 57, is a Canadian-British hereditary peer and media magnate. Upon the death of his father in 2006, Thompson became the chairman of Thompson Corporation and also inherited his father's British title, Baron Thompson of Fleet. After the acquisition of Reuters in 2008, Thompson became the chairman of the merged entity Thomson Reuters. As of 2009, Thompson is listed as the wealthiest person in Canada with an estimated net worth of 37.8 billion. The Hudson Bay Company, HBC, French Campagne de la Baie de Hudson, is a Canadian retail business group. A fur trading business for much of its existence, HBC now owns and operates retail stores in Canada and the United States. After incorporation by English Royal Charter in 1670, the company functioned as the de facto government in parts of North America for nearly 200 years until the HBC sold the land it owned. The entire Hudson Bay drainage basin known as Rupert's Land to Canada in 1869 as part of the Deed of Surrender authorised by the Rupert's Land Act of 1868. There have been 17 baronetesses for persons with the surname Stewart, 10 in the baronetage of Nova Scotia, 1 in the baronetage of Ireland and 6 in the baronetage of the United Kingdom. See also Stewart baronets. Henderson, see different spelling. Stewart's baronets, McTaggart Stewart baronets and Stewart Clark baronets. And there is the critter. Would you imagine such a face as that having so much power? In Canada, all your shit that's going on, Trudeau Castro, as he is, working for this man. See? You all hate Trudeau, but he's only doing what he's told. There's your man. Andrew Bertie was the former Grand Master of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta and was a Stewart through his mother, was Lady Jean Crichton. Crichton Stewart. Now, Crichton's an interesting name, isn't it? Andrew Bertie died in 2008. The Stewarts are a Roman Catholic bloodline working with the Vatican and British Crown. Bertie ran SMOM for 20 years. Andrew Willoughby Ninian Bertie, 15th of May 1929, 7th February 2008, was Prince and Grand Master of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta from 1988 until his death in 2008. Bertie was born in London as the eldest son of James Bertie, younger son of the 7th Earl of Abingdon, and Lady Jean Crichton Stewart. daughter of the 4th Marquess of Bute. He was the 5th cousin once removed of Queen Elizabeth II by common descent from King George III and his wife, Charlotte Sophia. There you go. We're nearly done. Anthony Crichton Stewart lives in the United States and he manages insolent and immature online trolls of paedophiles. So insolent, my apologies. They finance trolls all over the internet to harass people into not speaking out. There's his face. Now this is just additional data if you are masonically minded, just to give you another insight as to what you might need to see to further support what it is I've been trying to tell you in this live stream tonight. So I'll not read it, of course, because it's not going to be interesting to everybody, but there you go. If that's your gig, that's your gig. That's some data that will help immensely in you coming to terms with all this monarchy. Well, chaps and chapettes, I suppose it's one of them there is, if you're interested in that stuff, you could go back to it and such. But that concludes the mystery and the teaching in relation to 666. And I hope it's helped. I hope it's given you some ideas in which you can move yourself away from this rubbish and take control of your own life, your own inner self, and so the manifestation in your life is going to be a bit purer and a bit more in sync with the heavenly forces and the spiritual forces as this evil eye system is built almost to completion. How about that, chaps? So I'll just have a quick, because we've not got much. It says, Anthony says, in regard to the Lord Mayor Sean, do you know anything as to why symbolically they keep a key under the hat? Wonder if it's out to do with the trust and the fable to keep box said to be in the Bank of England. Well, anytime you see a key, it's symbolic of they have the key to a door that only they have. So it could mean that, the trust indeed. So if you got one of the last images from the bar in New York, a letter, read that. Tells you exactly. It's unincorporated bar, 12 livery companies, and they run all the corporate side of everything that's took over everything. Now, interesting stuff on the old reversion side of things, which is going on. We now can see why these corporations have got so much power in our nations over our state, the double dipping our estates. So battling with the corporations without bloodshed would have to be done at that level. So that's interesting stuff. Jay says, your connection speed must be woeful, Treen, okay. Kraken, eclipse goes through 8 times Nineveh in US, making an X shape. Check Nineveh being destroyed in Bible. Mupit and Salem equals peace, I'm led to believe. Jerry says, the Borgia family and Conte Colonna. Oh yeah, oh, we haven't even touched it yet. There's tons of them. Tons of them. Canaanites, exactly. That's where it's coming from. The Canaanites. Melchizedek. Yet the Jews are obsessed with killing Canaanites. I mean, the Puritans, when they landed over there in America, went, oh my God, and they determined all the Native Americans Canaanites and they had to be killed. That's how psychotic they were. But in fact, the Puritans and Cromwell himself wasn't impressed with the Jews. Do you know why? Because they were real Jews that were here. Not these new shit shags that we were fetching in. I mean, you've really got to study history and not just the one side that you think you're on. Because if you're on a side, then naturally there has to be another side. If you're on a side, you can't get away from sides. It's impossible. How could you possibly then see the picture from a balanced perspective? As soon as you pick a side, you've an opposition. That's the nature of this place. You can't do it. Jerry says, learning Gaelic again, no doubt it's changed, but I'm taking it back on. Yeah, there's a reason why they got rid of it, why they wouldn't let you speak it. Doesn't it all look so clear why we've all been fighting amongst ourselves so long while these truckers with an F sit high and mighty? Exactly. We have to take control of ourselves because it's us that are doing it. They're setting the scene, they're giving the eye vision, and we're all jumping on and building it. Ched says Iranian. Well, let me be quite frank with you. When you get into that, it's not as clear as things are presented either. Because the Aryans did a full circle all around that area as well. Which is why you got all your Sanskrit knowledge and such. And, you know, my personal opinion is that the runes came before the Sanskrit. Make of that as you will. So if that's the case, then of course the runes belong to the Aryans, which it does. It does indeed. Tree says, thanks Jace, I've had nothing but freezing. Okay. Hewlett McGee says, a face only a mother could love. Oh, which one's that? Mr. Whittlesback. There's something about them teeth that makes me think of David a bit, and think, okay, yeah, he's keeping them in order for something a bit naughty. PY says, wow, mind blown, good stuff. Oh, you're still up, Paulie, my good man. Just want to make JFK and the Fitzgerald family of Limerick. Yeah, bedtime for me. Have a great week, folks. Night, all night, Paul. Night, says Treen. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting over 2 hours a bit too often these days, but it's good shit, and I'm sure you'll like it and appreciate it. So with that, young ladies and gentlemen, I will say, have a great week, and I will give it up and say, till the next time.
rocket.